In part 1 of Mahabharata, we come to know that Santanu and Satyavati's son, Vichitravarya, when he became young, Santanu made him the king and retired alone to the forest. He lived there until he died. We'll move on with the story after that. Bhishma heard that the three daughters of the king of Benares were to hold their Swamvara, the self-choice ceremony, where each would choose her husband from among the kings and princes assembled there. He wanted Vichitravirya to marry, but the king was too young to stand any chance of being chosen. So Bhishma himself went in a light chariot to Benares. Once there, he told no one who he was and did not enter the open arena with the other kings. Bhishma had no weapons with him, nor any sign that he was a warrior. His four swift horses were covered with dust, and no one gave them a second glance as he waited while the royal guests assembled. Then the three princesses named Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika arrived. The Benares army surrounded the area, ready to make peace among rejected kings, and Bhishma spoke softly to his horses. Without the weight of armor, his light chariot leapt forward. He broke through the king's army from behind, where they kept no watch, and scattered them from his path. In the wink of an eye, he had stopped and caught up the three maidens before anyone could realize what had happened. Bhishma smiled at the powerful kings and princes gathered from every land and said, "Know that the Kurus do not compete with your kind, and know also that the wife is most dear who is stolen by force. You now have my permission to go home." Biting their lips in wrath, the suitors slapped their armpits and cupped hands and roared in anger, calling out to Bhishma, "Stay! Wait!" They called for the Banaras army. They drew their swords, aimed their arrows, ran to find their chariot and armor. Bhishma laughed and was gone in a cloud of dust, while 10,000 arrows and dust buried themselves deep in the earth behind him. The thunder of his horses and the rattle of his car were soon gone in the distance, and none could hope to overtake him. In Hastinapura, Bhishma gave the three captives to Satyavati until their marriage. She was kind to them and they spoke openly to her. Ambika and Ambalika were willing to marry Vichitravarya. But the eldest princess, Amba, said, "In my heart I have already chosen King Salva, who rules in the west, and he has chosen me as his wife. Now do what should be done for me." Satyavati and Bhishma understood and sent Amba to her husband. Her sisters married Chitravirya, but the Kuru king stood in the shadow of death from consumption and soon died, leaving behind his kingdom and all who loved him. "My son had no child," wept Satyavati. "The kingdom is dead without a king. How have I done wrong that he has died so young?" Bhishma said, "Queen, blame not yourself. Have you not another son, the island-born Vaisha? Bring him here and ask him to father sons by Vichitravirya's wives. He lives in the forest," answered Satyavati, "and I may call him to me by my thoughts." Then Bharata, Vaisa, came at his mother's call and fathered three sons. For one change of the moon he lived with Ambika, then for a month with Ambalika, then after with one of the Satyavati's maidservants. When he had sown those sons in Vichitravirya's fields, Vaisa left for the forest. When the children were born, Bhishma raised them as his own. First was born Ambika's son Dhritarashtra, who was blind, but whose bodily strength had no equal among men. Next was Ambalika's son Pandu, and the youngest brother was Vidura, the maidservant's son. Majesty, because Dhritarashtra was blind, Bhishma made Pandu king, and when Pandu had grown to manhood, he looked about for a queen. To the south of Karujangala was the kingdom of Kunti, and there lived the princess Kunti with her father the king. She welcomed anyone travelling through the kingdom who requested food and lodging at the king's palace. In this way, she made the hermit Durvasa, clad in rags and ashes. and so pleased him by her kindness that as he left, he taught her a magic spell. By this mantra, he told her, she could call on any god in heaven to make love with her and receive a son from him. Was it true? Wondered Kunti. She stood in the sun, running over the magic words in her mind, and stared down at her shadow. She thought, Durvasa has played a joke on me, and frowned. Then she thought, or he has not. The sun was warm on her back. Surya of 1,000 rays shone down on her. Kunti thought of him. All the world sees him in the day, but at night he would be mine alone. Was he as handsome as the statue in the Sun Temple? That night, Kunti lay awake in bed until it was midnight. Outside, the earth lay in silence. The palace was dark. She went to her window and softly spoke the mantra of Durvasa. There was light, the smell of hot metal, a wind, hot and dry as the desert, singing in her ears. It was so bright that Kunti shut her eyes, but the wind made colors behind them. She trembled and fell, lying on the carpet like a broken vine on the forest floor. Surya, the Lord of Light, carried her to her bed and stood smiling over her, lighting the room with his presence so there was no shadow anywhere. He wore a tall golden crown whose design shifted and changed as he breathed. A band of brilliants and jewels fell across his bare chest from over his left shoulder. Loops and pendants of light bearing gems hung from his belt. From his necklace and bracelets of brass, from his long heavy gold earrings, all their lights swept about the room in thousands of colored arcs. He took off his crown, and his golden hair curled round his face like a helmet of dull bronze. Princess, awake! Kunti opened her eyes. You called, said Surya, and I have come. Kunti found her voice. Lord of Day, forgive me, but I called only to test my new mantra. I know why you called, and now I am yours alone. Do you want me to go? I have no husband, Lord Surya. Soon you will marry. The children of the gods are born in one day. May I not stay? The light my father will see. No one else can see this light, princess. Children may command the gods. I will go if you wish, and you will see me again only in the far blue sky. So soon, sighed Kunti. But stay a moment, you have come so far to see me here. The next evening, Surya's son was born, wearing earrings and hard golden armor. Kunti set the child adrift in the Yamuna in a basket made waterproof with wax. As he floated away, she said, May all your ways be happy. Blessed is the lady who will find you and be your mother, and watch you crawl on the ground covered with dust, and first hear you try to speak. And she wept softly at losing him. The Yamuna cried the child. The Yamuna carried the child into the Ganges, and Ganga washed him ashore at the feet of Adhiratha, the charioteer and his wife, who had come to bathe in the river in the Anga land early in the morning. Adhiratha gave the boy to his wife and said, This is a great wonder, my lady, a child of the gods sent to us who are childless. Earrings brighten his face, and he wears armor shining bright as the sun. Though I am a charioteer, I shall make him the best of those who bears arms. I name him Karna. When Kunti's father thought it time for her to choose a husband, Pandu came to her Swamvara ceremony, and there she chose him by placing round his neck the white flower garland that she carried. When Pandu returned with Kunti, he found that Bhishma had given gold to the Madra king Salya and had brought back from the north Salya's sister Madri to be Pandu's second wife. Pandu and his wife lived happily in Hastinapura for many months. Then he wanted to retire into the forest for a while with Kunti and Madri. His attendants built a forest home for the king, and Dhritarashtra daily sent food to them from the city. One day Pandu left his wives and rode off alone into the forest to hunt. Soon he saw two deer joined in copulation and pierced them with sharp arrows. The doe fell dead, and her mate beside her fatally wounded. When Pandu drew near, the stag looked up at him and with tears in his eyes asked, Why have you done this? Pandu replied, Kings may hunt deer, it is no crime. Not for hunting do I blame you, answered the deer, but for your cruelty in killing us while we made love, I curse you. You have brought me grief when I was happy. You have made my love useless, and yours shall be the same. Death will strike you down when you next make love. Then the deer was dead. Pandu told his wives, go back to Hastinapura, for I am under a curse, and now I must live alone in the forest and be at peace. Then joy and sorrow will not stick to me, nor fear dare be in my presence. Madri wept, and Kunti said, we must share your curse and stay with you, for if you cast us away, we shall soon die with broken hearts. I would not do you harm, said the king. We will be three. He called his servants and gave them the royal jewel to give to Dhritarashtra, then sent them away. And Pandu began to live with his wives in a far hidden valley of the Himalayas, beneath the snow covered 100 peak hill, where stars rest at night like flowers of light in the deep lake of the sky. Hot tears ran down Dhritarashtra's face when he learned Pandu had left Karujangala and he would not eat or sleep. Bhishma said, take this jewel and rule the kingdom. Someday he may return. He will never return, Bharata, answered Dhritarashtra. Who knows the future, Majesty? Take it and stop your sorrow. Why? This is why. I have sent messengers to the mountain kingdom of Gandhara, and even now the king's daughter comes to be your wife, and she comes to wed a king, not an ascetic. A king who is blind? Now you are the Kuru king Dhritarashtra, whose wisdom is his only eye. Her brother Shakuni brings Gandhari with her marriage gifts. Already she loves you and has blindfolded her own eyes for life. This she did from love for me, whom she has never seen. That is the truth, Majesty. Take this jewel now, for she is not many days from here. Dhritarashtra lost his sorrow in Gandhari's love, as a river is lost in the sea. She became pregnant by Dhritarashtra, but a full year passed by without her giving birth, and longer until Dhritarashtra sent for Vaisha in dismay. Vas came to the king and said, Gandhari carries 100 sons. She will give birth at the end of 2 years. Be patient and know that there is no danger to her, and I will return when it is time. Vyas then spoke to Bhishma, so that when Gandhari gave birth, there were 100 bronze jars filled with clear butter, ready and hidden in the palace garden. From her womb came a hard ball of flesh that Vyas took from her and washed in cool water. Here are your 100 sons, he told Gandhari, but there is more to do before they are formed. Vyas divided that ball of flesh into pieces. As he walked in the garden, Bhishma put each piece into a jar and sealed it. At the end, there was an extra piece. Bhishma brought another jar, and Vesa said, there are now 100 sons and one daughter. See that the jars are not opened for 2 more years. Then they will be born. Bhishma took from his robes a short arrow wrapped in golden cloth and stuck it in the earth. I have placed my ward arrow. None can see these vessels but myself. After 2 years, Gandhari opened the jars, one every day for 101 days. The first of Dhritarashtra's son was Duryodhana. After his birth on the same day, a maidservant bore Dhritarashtra's son Yushtushu. The next day, Dushashana came from his jar, and then all the other sons, and last of all Dhritarashtra's daughter Dushala. Pandu too had sons, just previous to the birth of Duryodhana. He had been sad at heart because he could have no children. So when Kunti saw this, he told him of her mantra. Pandu smiled happily and said, call Lord Dharma, the god of justice. Dharma came from heaven down to 100 peak hill in his chariot and at noon gave Kunti her son Yudhishthira. He will know truth, said Pandu. Now call Vayu, the wind god, and bear me another. The bearer of fragrance came to Kunti riding a red deer and gave her the Pandava Bhima. He has great strength, said Pandu. Now call for Indra. Madri asked him, may I not also give you sons? Ask Kunti if I may use her mantra. Kunti told Madri the magic spell of love. Pandu said, If you each use it once more, it will be enough. Indra's son by Kunti was Arjuna, who was very beautiful. Madri called to her the Ashwins, the twin horsemen and physicians of the gods, the lords of light and darkness. They are young and very old. Together they came to Madri in the twilight of dawn, the morning after Arjuna's birth. Then Madri bore Pandu twin sons, Nakula and Sahadeva. As Pandu watched his five sons grow up, he felt his own strength return to his arms anew. Yudhishthira and Bhima were fair, Arjuna was dark. The twins were light-hearted and handsome, and all were a joy to him. Slowly, as the years passed, Pandu lost all memory of the deer scars. He felt carefree and young once more. He kept no guard against the five flower-tipped arrows of Kama, the love god, who holds the most powerful bow in the world, though it is made of sugarcane and strung with only a line of bees as a bowstring. So in the spring, beneath the snow mountains, as Madhuri went alone to bathe, he stalked her through the forest and seized her. And though she tried to resist him, he entered her in love and instantly died with a cry in her arms. Madhuri held Pandu's body and wept that he had died without satisfying his desire. Her heart was broken and she too was dead, gone to heaven. Two Nagas found them and taking the guise of mountain men wearing tiger skins, they came to Kunti and said, "Leave the children and come apart from them a moment." They told her, "Because they have died desiring each other, we will burn them here together and lead you with your sons to Hastinapura." Kunti cried to herself and answered, "She was more fortunate than I to have seen his face alive again." When she arrived at the elephant city with her five sons, Bhishma and Dhritarashtra bowed to them at the gate, and the escort of Nagas gave Vidura the ashes of his brother and Madri. Now, while she was telling the story, she said that now she will go on to describe how Kripacharya and Dronacharya came into being. Deep in the forest near a bell heather bush, a Kuru soldier found twin children abandoned, a brother and a sister, and brought them to Shantanu. "What was there with them?" asked the king. "They lay on a deerskin, Majesty, with a strung bow and an arrow. The boy holds the arrow and will not let go of it." "They are children of the Brahmana, well skilled in weapons," said Shantanu. "I name the boy Kripa and his sister Kripi. Let them be raised in my palace, for they are cast away and have no other home." At the gate of the Ganges to the north, in the kingdom of Panchala, lived the recluse Bharadwaja. One day he saw an Apsara bathing in the river. Proud in her beauty and at the sight of her, his vital seed left him and fell into his water bowl. From the fluid was born his son Drona. As Drona grew up in his father's retreat, he became friends with the Panchala prince Drupada, whose father sent him to be taught what he might learn by Bharadwaja. Then his father died, and Drupada became the Panchala king and come no more to the forest. Next, Bharadwaja ended his life. Drona lived on alone, learning all the weapons of heaven and earth. When he had mastered them, Drona came to Hastinapura and asked Kripa for his sister in marriage. Kripa gave her gladly, and Kripi was delighted to marry Drona. Together they returned to Panchala and lived in poverty in a small village, and to them was born Aswathama, their son, drawn with a blue jewel in the center of his forehead. When Aswathama was young, he ran home crying one day because everyone in the village had milk apart from him. Drona told him that they were very poor and had no cow, and Aswathama understood and was comforted. But soon after, Drona saw some older boys give his son water made white with rice powder. Ashwatthama danced in joy, believing that at last he had tasted milk until the others mocked him and laughed. Drona's dark face hardened as his heart was torn. A long time he stood still where he was. At home he found Kripi holding their son to her breast as the boy wept. And he heard her say, "The shame is theirs who make sport of your father for his poverty. They are blind and cannot see where he is rich, and their children take after them because they know no better." Then Drona went to Kampalya, the capital of Panchala, and went before King Draupad in his palace. He said, "Majesty, I am Drona." Draupad replied, "Do I know you from somewhere?" "But I am your friend. We grew up together in my father's retreat." Draupad frowned in anger. "Don't be a fool. You are lazy and unlucky, but not my friend. All that has faded. Now I am king, and I must have friends and enemies from among my equals. Time leaves nothing true forever." Now, when the Bharata princes were young men, Kripa began to teach archery to the Pandavas and to Dhritarashtra's sons. Drona and his family had lived with Kripa for many years, but no one knew they were there. One day, the five Pandavas were playing with a ball outside the city when it fell into a deep, dry well. They could not get it out by any means. Then they saw a lean, dark Brahmana approaching. He smiled and said, "Shame to your loyal strength and skill." He took a golden ring from his finger and threw it into the well. "Promise me a dinner tonight. I will bring up your ball with blades of grass and my ring with an arrow." Yudhishthira said, "You ask for very little. I promise." Over a handful of long grass, Drona spoke a mantra of illusion. Then, leaning over the well curb, he threw one blade and pierced the ball, and a second that pierced the end of the first blade, and a third that stuck in the end of the second, and so he made a chain of grass many blades long. When it was long enough, Drona pulled up the ball. "Now a bow and an arrow," he said. Arjuna gave him his wide-eyed with wonder and delight. The arrow sped into the well and returned to Drona's hand bearing his ring. He gave the bow and the ring, still on the arrow, to Arjuna. "Teach us to do this," said Yudhishthira, "and when you need us, we are yours." Drona gently told him, "Take this ring from the well to your grandfather Bhishma." When he heard the Pandavas speak, Bhishma quickly went to Drona and said, "Welcome to you. This is the fruit of your good fortune. Why have you come to Hastinapura?" Drona said, "Because many years ago Draupad refused me even food and shelter for one night, I have determined to do what I shall do soon enough." Arjuna keeps that arrow as a treasure. Here is your ring, Draupad. Here is your ring. And Draupad is a fool. "It is because I look like a poor man," smiled Drona. "But what can I do for you?" Bhisma said, "String your bow, Brahmana." "And what on the bowstring?" "The hurricane winds, the snow and the sleet, the slattering rain, the hot fire, the illusions of war that burn and drown. This only with Kripa teach the Kuru princes and your own son with them, what each one may learn, and to the best of them reveal what weapons you wish." I'll come up with the third part of Mahabharata very soon, where the Pandavas and the Kauravas will learn archery and other skills together. See you soon and have a nice day. In part